He's somewhere else. Hold there, stranger.
Like a leap from a precipice into a hay pile, let's dive right in and get to the bottom of things quick. Did my 3-hour hands-on with Assassin's Creed Valhalla feel as underwhelming as that leaked video sure as Hellheim looked? No. The early footage circulating the internet is just that, early, from some primordial point in the development process. What's worse, it's been presented to you in all the wonders of potato resolution, and it's desyncing all over the place. In short, it's the sort of code that not even the nefarious Abstergo would probably try to sell you. All that being said, I'm certainly not saying that Ubisoft is out of the glitch woods. Not by a long shot. 3 hours is a long time to go under the hood with an assassin, and I was haunted by my fair share of ghosts in the Animus, figurative and literal. In a nutshell, I can tell you now that my time with Valhalla was fun, but it didn't exactly Ragnarok my world. We'll get into the whys and the wherefores of all that in a second, but for now, let me just do some housekeeping for this video. For starters, I'm a full disclosure kind of guy, so these are the Ubisoft terms that I'm working within. First thing to note there is that 20-minute limitation on my captured footage. I mean, I played this for 3 hours and I have so much to talk about and show you, and almost no time to do it within. So what I'm going to be doing is this. I'm going to be heavily reusing existing promo footage that Ubisoft has already put out for the sections where I'm just going to be talking, and in this way it'll allow me to maximize my captured footage so that I can just present it to you as raw, non-commentary gameplay. Now it's also worth noting that I've segmented YouTube's play bar into sections, so you can just jump straight to these. Or, if you prefer to hear me talk, and I'm surprised that you would, you can just jump into the in-depth, nitty-gritty topics that I'll be listing on there as well. Secondly, and this is really important to me, while it does say that I'm not allowed to show you any bugs, and this is presumably to prevent the creation of viral meme GIFs from flooding the internet, there's simply no way that I would ever agree to attending a preview event where I couldn't at least talk about them. I mean, that is just never going to happen. You just hold your horses, because we are absolutely going to talk about the glitches I saw in a moment. And you know what? I've been talking for too long. It's time for a chunk of zero commentary gameplay. Fresh off its Egyptian and ancient Greek holidays, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed franchise now wants to jet set us off on the ultimate Viking fantasy, set during the 9th century invasion of England. And you know what? It's actually a really interesting time to be a Norseman, or a Norse woman. The hero, known as Eivor, can be tailored to your liking. Getting your Hagar the Horrible or your Broomhilda on in this era isn't that old cliche. It's not, hey, every Norwegian, come hop a longboat to Old Blighty so we can ravage the horses and ride off on the villages. You know, there's actually something deeper going on in this time period. You've actually come to England for the longer term goal of setting up shop. The locals obviously don't want to make that process easy, but sharing your Viking culture with your new neighbours, as in popping over to axe them for a cup of sugar, isn't always going to be the way forward here. After all, this is a broken and divided kingdom, and that means diplomatic opportunities, decision trees, and branching outcomes. As Eivor, you're encouraged to explore alliances with different characters and groups along the way, maybe arrange the odd cross-cultural and incredibly unlikely marriage, basically whatever it takes to ensure that your settlement flourishes. And if all that doesn't work, just go berserk. My 3-hour demo time was roughly a 50-50 of both sorts of approaches. I mean, I didn't even get a glimpse of Eivor's origin story, somewhere back in Scandinavia. Unceremoniously, I got dropped into the local drama of East Anglia. I was given a horse and told to get Norse. So I did. The first thing I had to get literal grips with is how this sequel is doubling down on the violence, with a new, dual-wielding system. Like every RPG ever, you now have a primary and an offhand, and there are tons of different weapons, combinations, and abilities to explore. Personally, I had the most fun with a crowd-controlling flail in my off-mitt that could shatter shields. And then, once that was done, I would shatter the smug face hiding behind it with my hammer. As you'd expect, certain weapon combos work better against a bunch of new enemy archetypes, all of whom come with unique abilities. Like these bastards who just kick sand in your eyes. Obviously, you can also equip a shield, or you can just stick with two-handed skull crushers, stuff like Dane axes, greatswords, and Danish spears. And hey, the filthy snipers among you can also rely on a range of bows, which can be fitted with poison and fire ammo. And it goes without saying that the base stats of all of your tools of the trade can be steadily upgraded, multiple times, via materials found in the world. So it always pays to get your kleptomania on.
Now I'm angry. Open on you! That's it! Die! Yes! Your time's up! Look! The other man running away! That will cost you!
Thor, aid me! Put an arrow in the coward's back! Tired yet?
Honestly, and at a basic sort of level, the violence department just feels like a similar dance to last time. Left bumper, right bumper, handle your respective hands, and the parrying, blocking, and evasion systems all feel very Odyssean. Likewise, you still have heavy attacks on right trigger, and left trigger will zip you into a first-person archery mode that requires next to no drawstring pull time. It's also worth noting that when you target someone, glowing yellow weak points on the limbs of your enemies appear. Not sure if that's a standard deal, or some sort of perk that my demoers had sort of pre-bought for me. Either way, I was shooting people in the kneecaps, the elbows, instead of the face, which is weirdly novel. Anyway, look, overall, enemies definitely feel less spongier, and there's a lot of satisfaction to be had from the ludicrously brutal kill animations. These happen when you click your right stick to initiate a stunned attack. And if you invest in a stomp perk, you can just do that to people on the reg, because it doesn't lock you into any sort of mini animation. You can just chain crunch on the heads of a group of foes who have been knocked over by, I don't know, a strong wind or an explosion, whatever. Either way, just doing brain surgery with your boots again and again, man, it's awesome. So I'm pretty notorious for making detailed notes, and on the screen now is a quick rundown of all of the abilities that I did manage to scribble down in my time. These are important because I basically got the sense that most of the major combat changes reside in a slew of perks that can be unlocked via the skill tree, or new abilities, which can be acquired by finding books of knowledge in the world. Typically, 8 of these abilities can be assigned to your shoulder button modifiers, and for you newcomers, that's left trigger to access 4 ranged abilities, and right trigger for just as many melee-based surprises. And while we are talking copious amounts of notes, it's worth mentioning that the old skill tree has been rejigged to look like a sprawling constellation, not unlike Skyrim's. Now here's a crappy artist's interpretation of what it looks like, and the reason I'm doing this is, number 1, to save on that captured footage 20-minute time restriction, and number 2, in order to get a good sense of what Ubisoft is doing here, you have to do a lot of scrolling, a lot of zooming, just to see what the abilities are. So yeah, maybe just use YouTube's pause function, because I think a color-coded thing like this will just give you a better idea of how you're going to build your character. And it's worth noting that there are some grey slots there, because this game's in development and certain abilities just weren't listed. There was nothing there yet. Anyway, it's the usual deal. XP will earn you skill points that can be spent on stat nodes, and these improve a range of base fighting stats or main skills, which are passive fighting moves. I mean, see that big circle in the middle? That's where you start, and then the nodes just branch out into 3 distinct but eventually interweaving paths. And these are Wolf, Bear, and Raven disciplines. And you know what? When you get down to it, Wolf leans more to stealth, I would say. Bear is sort of heavy weapons brawling, and Raven is sort of more leaning towards picking people off from half a postcode away. Interestingly, every piece of gear that you equip in your inventory will align to these 3 schools of thought. So if you were to invest in like-minded nodes and gear, it's going to provide you with a damage bonus. You're still given the freedom to mix and match your approach however you'd like, but it feels like purists are going to get rewarded for gearing and speccing themselves to a specific playstyle, which makes a lot of sense to me. Lastly, and unlike Odyssey, health no longer regens. You're going to be constantly tapping Dpad right to recoup it. This being the case, you can expect to scour the world with eagle vision, trying to scoop up and stack supplies of life-giving berries and shrooms. And I can confirm that there are some awful toadstools out there that will kill you. I tested it for science.
Out!
Strike with me.
The horn and signal victory.
On the topic of D-pads, hitting left will summon your magically appearing steed, as per usual. You needn't always go by horse, of course, as summoning your longboat via a horn blast and raiding enemy settlements is one of your primary pastimes. Ubi insists that they've sort of scaled back the naval combat this time around. That said, salty sea dogs and fans of Black Flag, like myself, will rejoice to hear that you still get a sort of boat radio for Norse shanties, and at any time you can even turn to your second mate and go, hey, regale us with a tale and make it about me. And he will. There's a whole bunch of those. Personally, I use my boat to go try out 2 types of action, raids and assaults. Now, the first one is done purely to secure precious resources for your peeps. You basically sail into an outpost, put everybody to the sword, have a mini-boss fight with an especially tall or obese person, climb up on top of a church steeple, blow a big horn, and Robert's your father's brother. You're stocked for the winner. Meanwhile, assaults are actually against fortified military positions, and they're longer, far more hectic affairs. These involve siege weapons on both sides of the battle lines. You'll either use some, or you'll need to shut down the enemy using theirs. Now all this has to happen in a series of sort of arena fights, it feels like, where enemy AI is more or less spawning infinitely, and your own allies are getting knocked down and you just have to heal them back. Get through 3 or 4 different phases of this attack, and you'll need to take on an actual boss. For me, it was a dude called Rude, a Viking chieftain who was packing way too much health, and a direwolf who'd been hitting the steroids as well. Now, I've seen footage online where people sort of take him on toe-to-toe. Not me, I did things the smart way. The Altair way. Basically, I just climbed up the side of a castle, got above him, did a flying shank, killed him in 1 hit. Now, it's important to note that that was made possible by an advanced assassination perk, and that required a timing sequence which had a very short window of success. And if I'd have cocked it up, I would have ruined everything. Fortunately, I did pull it off, though I did still have to fight his pooch to the death, which was a bit of a pain in the ass. Anyway, once the deed was done, a local nobleman, who was a sort of Prince Valiant type named Oswald, debated me on the merits of keeping Rude alive. He wanted to recruit him. The leaked footage that I saw before I went into this demo had him spared. I decided not to pick his option up. Let me tell you, stabbing him did not go down so well with Oswald, and time's just going to have to tell on how much that's going to shape my story in Valhalla. Now, with all of the main murder kind of done, I tried a few story missions. It was sort of world building stuff that was light on combat and heavy on talking, matrimony, and minigames. Weirdly, now that he was free, Oswald just wanted nothing better than to go get ball and chained to some Nordish woman who looked like she could snap him like a twig. As Eivor, I embraced the mood of the day by doing a variety of merrymaking. To celebrate, I got more hammered than Thor's enemies by doing a Scold the Ale-Horn challenge. When I was sufficiently blind, I did what any sensible person would do. I challenged somebody to an archery contest. I was also later told by my Ubisoft handlers that there was a flighting minigame in there as well, which is like a Viking rap battle, apparently. But yeah, I didn't do that because I was far too busy nailing one of my clansmen via a romance option. Once again, I do these things for science and you. And amusingly, once I did bang them, which is kind of like an off-screen PG-13 kind of deal, I was given this post-coitus dialogue option to deliberately mispronounce their name. And that faux pas doesn't really go down so well. It's pretty funny stuff.
And keep pushing! East Anglia depends on it!
These merchants and farmers can fight.
Or they punch you! Yeah!
So with all the structured stuff out of the way, I was given an hour to just basically get into more mischief than Loki. And I did a bunch of stuff. I went on an unsuccessful hunt for a legendary animal called the Black Shuck, or Shook, whatever. Basically, it's this real-life cryptid that's said to be a ghostly, oversized black hound. I also went looking for an optional legendary boss fight with the Drenga, a Viking nobleman who's kind of a Lancelot deal. He's hoping for a warrior's death, but everybody who shows up just sucks. And speaking of boss fights, I had another one with a witch, who was one of those, is this supernatural what I'm seeing, or hard drugs kind of set piece that the AC franchise seems to be in absolute love with. Oh, and before I forgot, I went fishing. It was pretty good.
Aldous! Well met!
Onward, everyone! Onward!
Keep your guard up! People of East Anglia are strong. Thank you.
You throw in with these wastrels? These arrogant swine? For what? A scrap of land and a promise of peace?
Eivor, no! He should be tried before God, a lawful assembly. I won't have my reign begin with more blood spilt than is needed.
He deserves death, Oswald. That's our way.
Eivor, please.
deep in a sword sleep.
Blood for blood leaves no warmth in the hearts of men, Eivor. None at all.
Not leaving.
So many gods.
I should speak with Oswald. See if he's well.
Ruin's finished! To the ships! Praise the All-Father! Oswald lives! You fight well, heathen. Not bad yourself, Saxon.
So I'm pretty well known as a nitty-gritty type of game tester, and you better believe I just snooped around this Norse code. I did some quick tests on the stamina meter of Eivor when he or she is at power 55. For those of you interested, it takes 6 seconds to fully regen your stamina bar from nothing to full. 10 light swings with a hand axe will make you run out of steam completely, and 9 swings, either heavy or light, with a two-handed weapon. You can also do roughly like 5 or 6 evasive moves before you need a little rest. Man, I even took to the water as well. Eivor can hold their breath for 90 seconds before taking damage, and weirdly, at that point you have the option to consume food underwater to prolong your life, which is a bit of game logic for you there. Fail to do that and you'll be swimming with the fishes permanently, 24 seconds after you run out of O2. A few other tidbits. You can equip a shield to your main hand if you like, to go for a super defensive approach. There are also 3 types of bows that each use their own unique ammo types. You can find multiple books of knowledge for the same ability, and that will actually improve said ability further. Also, while you do have the option to click R3 in the inventory screen on any bit of gear to effectively make it invisible, sorry folks, you can't go streaking, which is a test I do with pretty much every single game. And last of all, I actually took the time to replay a bunch of sections just so I could do a voice test to see which Eivor actor you're going to prefer. Now, you'll have to excuse me here as I'm going to use still imagery because I'm still trying to preserve that precious 20-minute time limit on captured footage.
If Rued's clan continues to roam this kingdom unchecked, the people of East Anglia will be as ravaged as these lands.
If Rued's clan continues to roam this kingdom unchecked, the people of East Anglia will be as ravaged as these lands.
To fight for a king that you gave them, Finnr. Remember that.
To fight for a king that you gave them, Finnr. Remember that.
Oswald wasn't crowned yet, nor was he married. I say you have some work yet to do.
Oswald wasn't crowned yet, nor was he married. I say you have some work yet to do.
And I even took it upon myself to just circumnavigate East Anglia. It was a good 20-minute ride that honestly and eerily felt like I was riding Roach through the starting areas of The Witcher 3. Lots of spooky forests and moors, the odd wolf and or bandit pack that was out to tear me off my saddle and rip me a new butthole. I mean, yeah, like, aside from a lack of griffin attacks, I think a lot of you are going to draw the same sense of deja vu. Because let's face it, in pretty much every way, Ubisoft has been steering their AC Renaissance into a decidedly CD Projekt inspired direction for quite some time now. It's my hope that they co-opt the better parts of that franchise. Great script writing and meaningful side mission content that leads to a range of unique and satisfying endings. Unfortunately, I didn't really have much time to truly get a sense of those things. Firstly, my demo was relatively short, and secondly, be it the narrative experience or fighting in combat, everything I did see was kind of soured by some little glitches. And I'm talking things like NPC actors not being present during key conversation moments, both in voice and in person. And it's got to be said that the old facial animation system is still showing its age. 1 or 2 performances were a bit wooden, and the odd participant can have that dead-eyed kind of look. Be that as it may, I think sort of action-wise, the preview code bore none of the awfulness of that leaked footage. You know, stuff like placeholder dodge animations that look like you were teleporting, a lack of friendly AI in spots, stuff like that. But yeah, there were still some minor rough edges. And I'm talking usual suspect stuff like enemy AI leaping off elevated positions to fight you, only to die hilariously from fall damage. Or enemies just showing a low sense of self-preservation as you're peppering them with arrows. I also saw the odd body just clip for half a second through the ground before finally coming to rest as it should. And more than once I just saw my thrown axes levitating in the air by themselves after hitting an enemy shield. And speaking of hover conversions, I did catch the odd physics issue if your fight with an enemy turns multi-level. And I mean, to be completely fair, this is preview code. You know, it's certainly patchable. Mind you, it was still a little bit of a surprise to see things this ropey. I had the pleasure of playing early code for Odyssey and Origins way before they released as well, and at roughly the same distance from their respective launches. I don't remember them being as unpolished as this. Be all that as it may, there's still time, and I have to confess that Ubisoft has very much got me hooked in other ways. Most notably on the setting and Eivor, who, by all accounts, is this well-voiced and thoughtful avatar, not some mindless barbarian. For the first time in a long while, the Assassin's Creed series faces some stiff competition in the historically themed sandbox arena. Ghost of Tsushima is just around the corner. In fact, I'll be up with a review of that and a playthrough very, very soon. I wish I could tell you more about that game, but I'm NDA'd, I can't. What I can say is this. Providing Ubisoft shores up their leaks, and I'm talking both video-based and bug-wise, I still think Valhalla could be ready to set sail and go to war. Anyway, that's all I've got to say, and I'm going to leave you now with something you're probably not going to see anywhere else. Presented here is a 20-minute ride around East Anglia, but to stay within Ubisoft's arbitrary restrictions, man, I've just sped the footage up 3 times, because modern problems require modern solutions. If you want to watch it in its original playback speed, you can totally do that. Just go to YouTube options and dial the speed down to 0.25, and then you're good to go.